Someone asked me if I think it is an issue for white workers to be using the present social context of these, these mass popular uprisings against police brutality in the name of Black Lives Matter, whether it is an issue for white people to be using that context as a basis for organizing themselves. Specifically, I'm talking about the context, this question was posed to me in the context of white workers in a white-dominated industry. I think that the question is, it expresses some white guilt, obviously. I think that without any question, there should be no question that white workers organizing themselves, using this present moment as a basis for organizing themselves, is a good thing that will positively affect black people, provided that the organization is done in good faith, and the issues that are fought for are the right kinds of issues. But I think that it's really important for white people, the actual thing that white workers specifically should be thinking about right now is their moral responsibility to be using this moment, the present social context, as a basis for organizing. The bosses are vulnerable, and the workers are by and large united. This is a rare moment in which the social context is such that in most industries the bosses are not really able to, without dramatic repercussions, to just say that they don't care about Black Lives Matter. In most industries where the bosses are just liberals and see themselves not so much as capitalists, but see themselves as generally decent people, and they have a good opinion of themselves. They see themselves as on par with their workers, as peers with the workers. I'm talking about small businesses, small to medium-sized businesses, rather than large faceless corporations, where I think it's generally easier for bosses to hide, and for them to just hide behind corporate policy. But the point that I want to make here is that there's this humongous popular uprising happening right now, a sustained popular uprising that has been going on for months at this point, on the basis of Black Lives Matter. And this is a really good opportunity. There is, in fact, I think, a moral responsibility on the part of white people to be using this moment as an opportunity to organize in their workplace, especially white-dominated workplaces, especially workplaces. Really all industries are affected by systemic racism, but the bosses are vulnerable because they are, by and large, people just like you and I, who, they're in a different class position, but because of, how the way that neoliberal ideology works, it feeds the ideology of the bourgeoisie to the working class. So there's very little class distinction between the bourgeoisie and the working class on a cultural level. So bosses and workers are both feeling the pressure or the moral or whatever reason they have to be behind this movement for Black Lives. So the bosses are vulnerable and the workers are united, unless we're talking about actual hardline reactionaries. Those types of people are obviously going to be against this movement. And I'm speaking to you from Canada, which is it's a more liberal place, so there are fewer people of that sort than in the United States, for example, where I think that there's a higher like a greater demographic of these kinds of hardline reactionaries. But even then, I think, like, I mean, my suspicion, I've spent some time in the States, but my suspicion is that that sort of position is overrepresented in the media, and in fact, on the ground, like, there are a lot of people are more or less amenable to the idea of you know, Black Lives Matter and like against police brutality and all that. So I think that this is a really like a good opportunity, a really like important and rare opportunity where you have bosses who are vulnerable, and you have this one like social movement, this one movement that the workers can unite behind, whether or not they are, you know, like down with the idea of unionizing. It's really important in the context of like building a union movement at a workplace to find these kinds of like these issues that the majority of the people in the workplace will be able to unite behind. And this is like a really good opportunity to use to like identify in your workplace the particular like pivot points of the structural racism that is definitely present in whatever industry you happen to work in, and like go to your colleagues and start like using this social momentum as a basis for organizing. I think there's a real, we as white people have like a real moral imperative to be using this moment as an opportunity to organize, because like organizing is going to positively like it is truly only on the backs of workers' struggle that any like mitigation of structural racism, any like change to the structure is going to happen. The bosses will not give an inch unless they are forced to. So I think this is a really good opportunity for white people to organize, and then like obviously like whatever demands you can identify that pertain to your workplace and revolve around structural racism that you can unite your colleagues behind, like that is going to be a limited set of demands. And union organizing is like a long and like tiresome and in many ways a demoralizing process where like it just takes a lot of work, and it really takes a lot out of one. So even if you do win some gains around this structural racism issue, which is like a very real and pressing issue, and which I think like the moment is ripe to be gains won around, there's a lot of work to do beyond that. Like this is just like union tactics 101, but like you don't want to, when you go to your workers, when you go to your colleagues apropos of nothing, unless there's like already a union movement there, if you go to your colleagues and start trying to get them to organize, to go to the bosses together, to like come up with some ideas for how you can deal with the structural racism in your industry, at your workplace, like you should not be framing this as a union movement. You should be framing it as no more than what it is, as like just trying to accomplish your goal, and then when you accomplish it, then you can use this as a basis for further organizing. And really it is only by organizing workers, by the working class organizing itself and being able to actually go to the bosses and like make demands as an organized unit, that's really the only way that the issue of structural racism will ever be dealt with. That's a pretty good cue for me to